Hello, this is Nick Basabrasso. I've just joined the Richmond Selectmen Committee meeting. Can you hear me?
Yes, but we're not officially open quite yet. There'll be a few more minutes before we open the meeting.
Hi, Nick. Thank you for joining us. We will get to you. I think you're the second or third on the agenda, okay?
Okay, I'll put myself on mute until I'm
Okay.
called on.
Thank you.
I need a 40-inch screen to accommodate all the folks that are going to be here.
Do you have the executive order language in front of you, Al?
Yep, and counting down 10 seconds here.
Oh,
Okay, it being 6 o'clock, I'll open the meeting by reading the government's proclamation about what to do on technological means. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Paragraph 20, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may be gathered in one place, this meeting of the Richmond Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at richmondmass.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen, watch the meeting may do so by logging on to Zoom. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Thank you. I don't have the agenda with me. What is the first item on the agenda, Danielle?
It's the Balderdash continuation.
All right.
So you have to open the continuation of the hearing.
Okay, I'll move to open the continuation of the meeting, the hearing from the last session.
For
I'll second
Balderdash special permit amendment.
Special Balderdash special permit application.
I'll second the motion.
I'm in favor.
Neil?
Yes, I seconded it, so aye.
Hanson, aye. I declare the hearing to be open. Now, there's been some modification of the original suggested rules. I'd like to know exactly what they are. Elizabeth, could you help us out with that?
So at the end of the hearing, there was a request for our legal counsel office to connect with Christian Hansen's attorney, and he retained an attorney, Alex Glover. And we have been discussing proposed conditions. The board was given a response to some proposed conditions that were distributed to just the board. And so I think the discussion of those conditions and the proposals would be appropriate. And then I think if there's a concern about the draft conditions and consideration, you certainly could continue the hearing for additional resolution, or if the board is ready, you can vote on the, whatever the terms of the conditions are that you agree on tonight. So,
Those conditions had changed, I believe. I just saw a draft of them in the office, and I wonder if someone could go over them one by one or line by line, if they would, please.
sure. I'm gonna find the ones that Alex Glover marked up. And hold on one second while I'm still trying to find those. And then we can review them together. Here we are. So the essential items were, from a legal perspective, what happens to the different events and how can noise be controlled? And if you recall, there was a noise study that the board prepared. And so aside from the legal issues about what is defined as, so there's a law, General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 3, that regulates agriculture in zoning. And generally speaking, agricultural events are subject to some limits, but you don't control agriculture through zoning. So in this, we agreed with Alex Glover that we're not trying through the zoning permit to agree on agricultural control, things that are defined as agriculture in the zoning law. But there were conditions that were proposed. The first condition, we had proposed to define farm events because farm events are defined in your bylaw. Alex Glover proposed just to say that farm events are permitted Monday through Sunday. And then the question are, what are the hours? We had proposed from noon to 8 p.m. She proposes, or the property owner would like to have farm events from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. subject to noise controls. And I'll go through the noise controls. The way we were trying to structure town council and we were in consultation with Neil, we're suggesting that the regular special permit for zoning control allow normal events to occur, but not for events with more than 100 people. Our theory was if there was an event, a special event with more than 100 people, the applicant could come back to your Board of Selectmen and get event permit, which is a different thing. A general bylaw allows the Board of Selectmen to control certain kinds of events. The applicant instead proposes that the number of farm events with 100 or more people in attendance is limited to 15 a year, and that they limit it to 175 people at any one time. The third condition was about exterior amplified music. We had proposed that when they amplify the music, they measure it 3 feet in front of the speakers and that it not exceed 89 decibels. There is a edit from Christian's attorney that says exterior amplified music anywhere on the premises shall not be louder than, and I think we've agreed on the 89 decibel limitation as measured, but it still says as measured no more than 3 feet in front of the speaker. So I'm a little confused and I haven't had time to ask Alex, if she's here, we could ask her whether the measurement will be in front of the speakers or measured anywhere on the premises, but.
Hey, Beth, this is Christian. Yes, 3 feet in front of the speaker. We agree.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So if you have amplified music playing, you would measure it and it wouldn't ever exceed 89 decibels, 3 feet from the speakers. And then whenever any exterior amplified music is played, there will be an acoustical curtain system, such as the kinetic noise control KNC 100B system, which is that described in the noise control, I'm guessing. And they added a 180-degree curtain. So that we agree on. We agree on the decibel limitation and the 180-degree acoustical curtain to support it. It shall be installed directly behind the amplified music in compliance with the recommendations of the noise engineering report dated September 25, 2020. The acoustical curtain system will be continuous with no gaps, extend beyond the location of the speakers. All speakers and amplifiers face west away from Richmond Pond. That was already in the existing permit conditions. And away from neighboring residential property, and only placed directly in front of the acoustical curtain system. So when they have an amplified exterior music, they'll be surrounded by this 180-degree curtain, and there will be a decibel limitation right in front of the speakers. So also, I think, Kristen, you've agreed to the limit of no more than 3 musicians performing exterior amplified music at any time.
Sure, no problem.
No amplified exterior music permitted anywhere on the property after 8 p.m. We had suggested 7 p.m. He wants 8 p.m. And use of a tent for farm events is permitted, but the tent doesn't qualify as interior space for the purpose of the condition that amplified music is permitted only in interior locations after 8 p.m. So obviously, once the barn is constructed, that's an interior location, can be closed, and he wants to have amplified music. I think it would be then from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. only in the barn. Isn't that correct, Christian?
Yeah, practically think about an event. It may start at 5 or 6. There could be a social hour with some background music. But if the event's in the barn, dancing, whatever, happens later in the evening. So all the music, all the sound is going to be in the barn, doors closed at 8 o'clock. So exterior and everything stops at 8 o'clock. Right.
And stop by 11 interior?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
And we've had numerous events that go to 11 inside already, which we've never received any complaints about. So that's why we're using 11 inside, certainly not outside.
Parking is already in that north side of the property, but north side of the barn, capacity 60 cars, that already is there. Overflow parking on the lawn to the north of the barn. Only parking on the south side of the barn is just personal. Of course, there'll be, we had left in there and they didn't agree. They did not disagree with the applicant complying with requirements from the Board of Health. I think that was from the first permit. Alex is nodding her head. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah.
And then noted to stay away from the 200-foot buffer of the Richmond Pond and 200-foot buffer of any perennial stream. Comply with all state laws regarding farm functions, including service of alcoholic beverages and the bylaws of zoning. Permit has a duration. Now, we had said 1 year, they want 3 years on a rolling basis with a 1-year extension at the end of each year. The permit would be subject to annual review as it is now to assess compliance with the conditions of the special permit. First review in the fourth quarter of 2021. It was noticed to abutters and after publication, and based on this review, the board may determine, we said, whether there will be additional or modified conditions. They suggest whether there is compliance with all conditions.
Can I just address that real quickly? I'm sorry, Beth, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, it's up to the board if they're ready for you to speak. Al?
I think things should be addressed as they arise.
Thank you. And this is just brief, but just by way of explanation. I think that the provision that I think that Attorney Goodman had in her proposal was, quote, that additional or modified conditions shall be required. So the board may consider whether there would be additional or modified conditions. I question whether that's enforceable, because I don't think we can have a special permit today legally that is subject to unknowable change in the future. I checked on it just to see what the limit was. So I tried to rephrase it so it would be enforceable, so that I think the point is the applicant knows what's required and has to strictly comply with it. I don't think you can have undefined future conditions. So that was the only reason for that change.
And we appreciate that you're working with us as part of the modification that your client submitted for the barn, that we're wrapping up all of these conditions in one amended permit, and we understand that.
Thank you.
The farm events, so we had a provision, there was a request when this modification was originally filed to address the barn. And I discussed with Alex the concern that, well, we can't just approve the barn without knowing what the barn is, and there aren't any barn plans, and what if the barn was really just a roof on poles? And he said, well, we're inside the barn, as a hypothetical. And so she and her client came up with a paragraph description, which if you want me to read that, I will read that. Alan, do you want me to read that, Al?
Is it long?
It is about 10 sentences.
Yes, read it, please.
Over the course of the year, parenthesis 2021, comma, Balderdash Cellars will be renovating the historic barn on the Hanson property. The renovated barn will be used for additional space by Balderdash Cellars and for farm events. The plan is for the footprint of the renovated barn to remain nearly identical to its current footprint. The exterior of the barn will be wrapped in soundproofing insulation and then covered with rustic barn wood. The interior walls will remain the same, and there will be a new floor installed. There will be basement for storage. There will be restrooms installed. During the day, multiple barn doors will be open. For any evening events with amplified sound, the doors will be closed at 8 p.m. The barn will meet all appropriate fire, safety, and health codes for its intended use. I am not any way, shape, or form carpenter, but I do worry about the compliance with fire safety codes for something that's wrapped in insulation and then wrapped in wood. But they'll figure it out. That's what they've committed to do, insulate with soundproofing and then cover it with wood.
Well, it has to be approved by the building inspector, so obviously if
Yeah,
it's not
so you'll-
compliant, it
you'll-
doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll deal with that.
Yep.
Hey,
That-
I have it from reliable sources that work in the barn will begin shortly.
Work in the barn has been happening. It was happening last year just to really stabilize it with the decision from the last meeting and also our desire to hold events in there versus outside. Work will begin very vigorously starting shortly to bring it to completion by the end of 2021.
Well, essentially,
Hopefully.
the barn will not be exactly ready for these events this season.
It likely will not be ready for anything happening this season, no.
Okay.
By this season, you mean summer?
I mean, 2020, the year 2021, we likely will not have any occupants in the barn.
So that's why it's important that the sound conditions for summer use be agreed upon by this board. Then it goes on to the findings, which are the findings we made in the last permit, that it is in compliance with all the parts of the bylaw. And the only change was, again, the permit conditions were subject to annual review, but Alex has modified that to say the permit is subject to annual review for compliance with the conditions. She doesn't want you to be able to add modified conditions willy-nilly.
Well,
So this is your shot.
Mr. Chairman, just really briefly on that point, it's not that Christian or I don't want to add conditions willy-nilly. It's that I don't think the permit is legally enforceable if there's an unspecified future possible condition to be entered. I don't think that's permissible under the law. So all I was trying to do was not to make it easier for Balderdash. I was just trying to bring that language into compliance with the law. If you have a measured standard that can be checked in the future, I think that's fine, but I don't think you can say, and we might add more conditions, because then there would be no way to appeal it. That was my only intention in making that change.
Well, if I could just modify that and say that a condition could say, for example, that you don't cause nuisance sound off-site. Just, that's not what we did. We were very specific in what we did. But we could say, don't cause nuisance sound off-site, and then we would review that at an annual review and say, well, you are, so we're going to reduce the decibel limitation. So there could be ways to structure changes in detail, in defining the conditions when your goals are more broad. We're not setting those broad goals,
Right.
though. In this proposal, the board would be setting specific conditions about the decibels and about the sound curtain. I'm just pointing that out to the board.
There's another suggestion I have for Christian. It's only a suggestion that when the band leader steps up to the microphone, that they simply ask the audience to refrain from screaming and shouting. I think that was an issue with some of the people too. There was an awful lot of noise drifting across from the crowd that was unacceptable. People scream and shout these days. They used to clap in the old days, but now everybody screams and shouts. That's the norm. So if that would work, that might be a simple way to calm that side of it down a little bit.
If that's something the board finds important, I'm happy to have the musicians do that.
Yeah, we didn't include it as a condition. That's just a recommendation to avoid conflict.
Sure,
Right.
I'm happy to do it if that's something, and you can include it too. I have no problem with that.
I don't know how we would,
Yeah,
I don't know how we'd phrase that.
We
well,
could,
I think,
we could say the applicant has agreed that, the announcer will ask participants to refrain from loud screaming and hooting.
I think the way we can handle that is just with that agreement. We have,
Just verbal.
we have that on record in the minutes. And there's no reason not to, if we ask Christian to do that in his business, there's no reason for us to assume that he won't. I don't think we need to write that down. I do have a couple questions though. On the sound curtain, the original, as we originally proposed it, or as it was originally proposed, it talked about the type of curtain and all that stuff. Does the language now just say a surround a curtain? Does it say a specific curtain or just a curtain?
No, it does. It does. We had suggested a 180-degree acoustical curtain system, and we identified it as the KNC 100BQQ system, which is what the noise control said. Alex and Christian have edited that to say such as
Okay, fine.
phonetic noise controls.
That's what I want to do. I don't want us to be imposing a particular system,
Yeah.
or particular
we
brand.
said such as.
Okay, so the applicant agreed to the rewording the such.
Yes.
as. The other question I have is, there's typically multiple speakers, and the dB measurement is 3 feet in front of any or all, or I don't know.
Yes,
I
I think it would be.
Oh, okay. That was the other thing. And do you agree to those two things, Christian?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Neil with just a couple of comments as well. First of all, I'm very encouraged with the noise mitigation understanding that I think we have with Christian. That has been my principal concern. And I think we're taking reasonable, visible, and enforceable steps to address that issue. And I thank Christian for his willingness to meet us here halfway. The one concern I have, and the reason we're actually having this hearing, is because our initial permit allowed for a review and possible modifications when we issued it originally. And we're making the modifications or requesting them because we had experience over the last summer. And my concern is that we now hope we have addressed the situation. But if we do not have the right to discuss possible modifications at this time next year, we will have locked into a permit that would be 2 or 3 years in effect before we could have another discussion. And I just think that could put us in an awkward position.
Could
I think
could
you-
Yeah, go
You
ahead.
can issue a 1-year permit.
Well, if also, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the proposed language, although it did back off adding sort of unspecified conditions, also said that the permit could be canceled for non-compliance. So as I see that playing out is, I'm sure there will never be a problem again with Balderdash, but there's a concern about it in non-compliance. It comes before the board says this is a problem, and there isn't compliance, and you could say to an applicant, well, we're gonna just have to cancel it unless you agree to something else, and you do have the power to cancel it.
Well, that gives us one remedy, and it's the double-barreled shotgun remedy. It's not using birdshot; it's using 12 gauge. And I just don't want our relationship triggered by an all or nothing type resolution. So I'd like to. I don't have an immediate suggestion, but I certainly would like the right to have a similar type conversation with Christian a year from now, if some other issues come up that neither he nor we anticipated. That's a concern. It's not something that I'd like to figure out a way to accommodate both Christian and the town.
Alex, I feel that the board could reserve the right to reduce the attendance at the farm events in the face of offsite impacts.
I think they could, but I think it would have to be measurable. It may be something you and I could pull
We
out
could break
the
and,
book
right,
and
right.
work
You could
something out.
continue for a resolution of that issue. There could be reservations either in the terms of years or the, ability to limit the size or limit the hours. I do think you could change the hours. You could reserve the right to change the hours, Alex.
I
And
just
that's,
don't think it can be, I do agree that you can change conditions, but I think it would have to be if X then Y, not if we're unhappy then Y, because it leaves it,
no,
a
for
permit.
offsite impacts. Offsite impacts is the only issue.
right,
In
but
other words, if it's causing harm to the neighborhood.
right, but that's wide open. I mean, that could be interpreted as anything. That's
There
That's-
is a legal standard for that.
for
I
impact
think
on the
Alex and
neighborhood.
I could talk about this offsite and try and come back with a proposal we agree upon, because otherwise we're going to get into a typical legal debate that.
Yeah, I don't think we we made a decision last time to allow Christian to go ahead with the barn construction. I think we're 80 or 90% there, and we're not under pressure to make a final permit decision this hearing, but we could continue the hearing, and hopefully, as a result of conversations between the attorneys, at our next hearing, have a document that we are both comfortable with.
Excuse me, is there a chance for public comment on this?
There will be.
Okay. Thank you, because I have one.
Yeah.
May I inquire if there are any other issues the board would like us to address offline when the attorneys are working together?
I don't think we can discuss issues and make a decision as a group offline.
No,
No, that wasn't what I
that
meant.
wasn't her question.
To clarify, is there any areas of concern that the board has with the proposed conditions that I read right now in this public meeting that you would like me to continue to discuss? For example, Neil raised the concern about being able to change conditions as needed to address impacts that we don't know about. We have to address that. And there may be other concerns that you have, like the size of 100 patrons, 15 a year. I mean, is there anything else that you need us to negotiate that we come back to the board with a proposal that the board then vets in a public meeting. Does that make sense?
Yes, my position is, I'm looking at your letter, Elizabeth, where you list the 5 items, and it sounds like they have been agreed to between the two parties.
Pretty good. Yeah,
with-
pretty close.
Pretty close. The baffle and the location of the measurement and the dB level is agreed to from what I hear.
Yes.
The number of musicians is agreed to from what I hear. The number of people over 100, it sounds like it was agreed that 15 events could fall into that category, and an unlimited number of events less than 100. It sounds to me as that's been agreed to. The only thing that seems to be in, I don't know if it's a disagreement or just different than what was proposed, and that's the hours of operation. And I don't see any problem with the hours that the applicant suggests, given that the noise controls are in place as stated. None after 8 o'clock outside, and controlled the dB level even after 8 o'clock. It's still at 89 dB at some location on the property. So it'd be like outside of the building, let's say.
Just to clarify, after 8 o'clock, it would be inside, still
I'm-
measured at 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, you heard what I meant to say.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep.
I have a question. I'm not an audio technician by any stretch, but I wonder if a series of smaller speakers in the audience would work better for sound against sound transmission as opposed to the speakers in front of the band broadcasting across a larger area. Would that be a good idea? Or is that just another not so good idea?
Well, my input on that is, I don't think we should be specifying the number of anything anywhere.
Oh, it's just a suggestion. I'm not telling anyone to do anything.
Well, my suggestion is to specify a dB level, and that's it. And how the applicant meets that level is of his concern. That's my input.
My degree is not in audio engineering for sure, so I think Roger's point probably makes it. Also, I'm also thinking in terms of enforcement and so forth. We set the rule, and then the applicant figures out how to comply with it in terms of size of speaker. So I think it's probably okay.
So to rehash, the board doesn't really have concerns with the revisions of the conditions or the draft conditions, other than this idea that in the future, that Alex and I should discuss in the future, that if you need to make edits or changes, how we structure that into this permit.
Well, I think we do have control. Neil called it the shotgun approach. It's not really, in my opinion. If there's non-compliance, then we have a discussion.
Yeah.
And I don't know what issues there could be if what is on paper here is complied with.
My problem, Roger, is that non-compliance is a very subjective measurement. And I would be concerned that we're locking into a long-term arrangement, amenable or amendable only if we can establish non-compliance. Because if we allege non-compliance and Christian opposes that, we're in court before we can impose any new limitations or request any new limitations. So that's a concern. The only remedy we have is non-compliance, is a finding of non-compliance.
Neil, would it make you any more comfortable if we change it from 3 years evergreen to 2-year evergreen permit with 1-year renewal?
My concern is we have a situation arises that we don't anticipate, neither you nor us. your suggestion would lock us in for year 2 and only address it after that, and we'd have to live with a second year of whatever
Yeah.
that problem happened to be.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
language was in our original permit, if I recall, and I think I
Yes.
asked for it.
And
Yeah,
Alex
I-
has objected. Alex has objected, saying that that wasn't, in her opinion, legal. I think there are ways to write that. And I think that if the board will give us a couple weeks to continue, we'll come back with some language that we both agree to.
I'm
I think we
comfortable with
can, I think we can figure out a way.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's where we were. And then you were just asking, do we agree with everything else?
Yes, that's
My-
correct. And then
Yeah.
you might
And
want to
my
hear
input-
from
My
everybody
input
else.
is, am I happy with everything else, or who cares whether I'm happy or not? Do I agree with everything else? And as long as the applicant and our attorney is agreeable, I am.
Okay, well, my legal background is, yes, I'm generally in agreement, but I would like to see the finished document before I sign off on it.
Well,
Sure.
absolutely. That was the step. I thought the step was to take what we just said verbally and get it in writing with both attorneys in agreement, or I should say our attorney and Christian in agreement.
Yeah, okay, I'm good with that.
I'm comfortable with that also.
All right. Do we want to open it up now to public comment?
If there's nothing else for us to discuss, we can do that.
Leslie Breeding had her hand up first, and then Kitty, and then Joe Castellucci.
Yes, hi, this is Leslie. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Leslie Breeding. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, dear.
the real question is, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear, you can hear me? I'm very sorry. It's Zoom mania. I would like to say that I think Neil's instincts are right on the length of the permits. There's so much that's unknown in terms of attendance in the coming year, that you can always make it a multi-year a permit next year or the year after. I think you're right. I think it should be 1 year. It's common for business establishments with music to post that customers respect neighbors and keep the noise down. So I don't see why that shouldn't be written into the permit. I'm not as confident as you are, perhaps, that you can just make it a, would you please do this, balderdash. I think it should be posted in signage and announced before music events. It's very common for business establishments. Balderdash wouldn't be doing anything out of the ordinary to do that. I'm a little confused. Maybe somebody can straighten me out on this. I had thought that the ultimate promise was to have all music and events inside and not outside. So I'm hoping this thing about the sound curtain and the decibel is all a discussion of until they get the things built. And finally, this thing about the decibels measured 3 feet in front of a speaker, I don't know how that number really was arrived at. I read the sound report. I'm sorry, what?
That was the recommendation of the sound engineer.
I think my neighbors would agree that it's not what the decibel numbers read. We're grateful for the suggestions of sound curtains and the technology, but it's more to do with the nuisance noise that we're suffering from. The decibel numbers at 3 feet in front of a speaker, I think, is hopeful, wishful thinking. I don't think that's going to solve the problem. Thank you.
Kenny is next.
Oh,
Kenny?
wait, can somebody answer the question about weren't all events and music supposed to be inside?
I can tell you that was not my understanding.
I believe that what was discussed was the majority of events would be moved into the barn once it's built. But that's not for over a year out. So I think that's why they're making those recommendations for outdoor music right now.
I think we're gonna have problems with that. I think the town in Balderdash has promised different and conflicting solutions, and that's one of them.
Can I jump in and just on the tail of Leslie's comments? Because I live in Orchard Circle, the Colonial Acres development, and I'm particularly concerned, Leslie, if you don't mind,
I'm
particularly
finished. Go ahead.
concerned that we are very close to Balderdash as the crow flies especially. And last summer, the sound curtain now would be projecting the noise up through the fields. And I heard it quite a bit last summer. So I'm concerned that the sound engineer hasn't taken into consideration the scenario on our side of 41. And well, I don't, if it's to imagine that on a wonderful summer day, we love to work outside, we love to enjoy our yards so much. And if the sound starts, midday and goes all afternoon into the sunset dinner hours on the deck, I mean, it does make me very concerned. And I want you to know that it's very, it is very distracting and annoying because the noise is distorted. You don't hear really the music. You just hear the sort of bass sounds of the loudspeaker. So I'm concerned about how long and that it would be also constant noise. And I don't mind acoustical music, but amplification is a concern. And in particular, that the sound engineer hasn't taken into consideration that form of projection if you've now altered the sound curtain to mitigate the sound at Richmond Shores.
Well, I must say it's too bad we didn't hear from Colonial Acres until very recently, because we might have sent the sound engineers over to that area to check on the situation that you're speaking of. I don't think we heard from you folks until, what was it, November of this year, something like that.
We did send a letter in when we realized that how the thing was being designed. I mean, I'm sorry that I couldn't respond sooner.
I'm not the sound engineer, but it was my understanding that the curtain or the baffles is not a reflector.
Right.
It is a deadener.
Right.
So I think it should help both sound to the east and sound to the west.
Well, I would just be concerned that we be given a chance to review and comment. I mean, a little bit of noise is all in good fun. I love music. I probably would enjoy sitting there listening to it, but it is loud, and if the wind is right, it's constant all afternoon. It's a bit much for the neighborhood. And one neighbor said to me, well, I didn't hear the sound, but I would be concerned that other neighbors in my neighborhood are suffering or impacted. So I do feel we should be given consideration. Okay.
Yes.
Joe is next.
Great. Hi, everyone. Joe Castelluccio. I also live on Orchard Circle. And maybe 2 points of clarification, one that Neil may have touched on already. And just perhaps for the record, to be absolutely clear, the acoustical curtain that's been mentioned, I've been to Balderdash and seen some of the acoustical measures, which have been not 180 degrees, but designed to deaden the sound, not necessarily direct it or provide some type of, acoustical amplification like you'd see at Tanglewood. So let me pause there for a second and confirm that that's the understanding, or in fact, the thing that we're talking about. Because if it is, one story; if it's not, something different.
It is a surrounding deadening system. It's a sound deadening system. It's not like to redirect the noise to the audience, as you suggested, is done at Tanglewood.
Okay, thank you. So then the second point of clarification to something that was mentioned earlier in terms of compliance. I recall this is something Christian raised in one of the meetings from a month or two ago. In my view, a measurement as was described, 3 feet from the speaker, 89 decibels, that to me sounds fairly objective. And if there were some measurement or some measures in place to measure compliance, I understand people may have different feelings, may have different perceptions of noise, but to be fair to everybody, if we have taken the trouble to have a sound engineer and come up with some objective data points, we should be able to measure them and determine fairly easily if we have compliance or not. And I'm wondering if that has been given any thought, and if it hasn't, I would respectfully suggest that maybe it should.
Does anybody have a response to him? If not, Miles is next.
Yes, I'm using a new microphone. Can you hear me?
Yes,
You can.
I can.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Freilinghouse for his comments. The noise nuisance is not only coming to the shores, but going west. And if you take a look at Google Maps to Orchard Circle, where Joe Castelluccio lives, you'll see that there is an open field where the sound has no obstruction, and then goes through a small area of woods, so that the shores is not the only area that is impacted. The sound engineer reported that noise levels can vary based on varying environmental conditions, so that it isn't an exact science on any certain day. There may be louder nuisance noise coming due to temperature, weather, and density of air, and temperature of air. I thought it was a good idea for a 1-year permit. I also thought that Alan Hansen's idea of smaller speakers is a new and good idea to consider. Who will enforce these conditions of the special permit, and how? You know, we can't have a police person standing all around Balderdash and recording things. Generally, I'd appreciate the comment of the selectmen of how will it be enforced? And I'd like to say that I'm disappointed that some of the speakers, the commentators at the last meeting seem to invalidate the concerns of myself, my family, my friends and neighbors. So I guess the question now is, how will it be enforced? And I appreciate all the work the selectmen have done in the past few years.
Would you like me to answer that, Alan, Roger, Neil?
Go ahead.
Sure, go for it.
So zoning violations are enforced by the building inspector in the first instance. Any person can ask the building inspector to act to enforce the zoning bylaws. So if any of you felt the conditions in the special permit, which are incorporate, you know, when it's finally decided and it's incorporated into the zoning, it's a zoning special permit, then it can be enforced by the building inspector. Should you ask the building inspector in a written letter to enforce and he denies the right to enforce, you have the right of appeal to the zoning board of appeals. Should they not act to enforce, you have the right to appeal to court.
I think a real issue will come down to dB measurements and a record of dB measurements, and who takes them and when. If we have a dB level on the property, we should be able to go and take a measurement at any time, with or without notice, to take a dB measurement. And we should have a location where we could do that. and permission to do that. And
I
maybe,
would also.
You have my
say-
full permission, Roger.
Yeah, I would say, and knowing what, every time we were doing DB measurements last summer, and I did too many that I don't plan to be in that business this summer. Christian has the ability to measure it on a daily basis, and I think he's a sufficiently savvy businessman to be able to self-monitor, because he knows at some point if the levels are too high at his location, he's going to hear from the neighborhood. So having the location on the property easily measured by Christian himself is not an enforcement tool, but it is a way, I think, of maintaining levels that hopefully we can all agree to.
for him to do that and to protect him and also to provide data, is it reasonable for us to ask him to keep a log entry of measurements as a condition?
You can do that.
I think it is reasonable.
Well, I want to ask Christian if it's reasonable.
I assume,
Conceptually, it's very reasonable. I'm just pausing because of any kind of details of what the expectation may be.
Well,
Again, as Neil said, obviously he saw me with a decibel meter, every day, every hour out there measuring things. And certainly as soon as the musician's set up, we're going to do some tests and say, hey, you're at 89 or you're not at 89. If you're higher than 89, you got to come down, and we'll just keep testing that. So I guess I just like some clarity on what would be the expectation.
well, my expectation would be, and this is a discussion, this is just for discussion purposes only. Every time last year when I asked you about the DB level, nearly instantaneously, you had a text to me with a recording of your DB meter. It would seem to me as though when you're setting up the music and you're like you just said, you're talking to the musicians and here's the 89 dB level. If you have a recording of that or some kind of an electronic measurement of that, if you could just capture that, and we're not going to say you have to capture any particular schedule, but every time you capture it, just have it captured at a point where it can be shared.
That's not a problem.
Should we, if that's reasonable to you, then that seems reasonable to me, from my opinion. And then that's a database. And if people are worried about compliance or whatever, we have the actual measurement.
So if the board wants, I'm sorry.
I would respectfully suggest that the town of Richmond own its own decibel recording meter. I think that's probably the best way in case there is a call. And both Neil and I have gone out with our phones, which probably are far from being a certified meter, and we've recorded the decibels at different locations. I think if we had a certified instrument, it would work much better for our purpose to know exactly what's going on in these areas that have complaints.
We
it's
do
all right with
have
the
some
board-
comments in the residents are making comments in the chat section. I don't know if the board is familiar at all with how to access that, or if you want me to read some of those comments.
I've been reading the comments. A lot of them are
Okay.
about weather conditions and characteristics and whatever. Generally, nature does not amplify noise. Noise in general, okay, dissipates over distances. And it's seldom, if ever, measured at a higher dB level than at the source. So, I mean, even when you hear your echo off a mountain and whatever, it's never as loud as the source. So, under any conditions, even if you're talking about it going over water and whether the conditions are damp or whatever, in general, sound dissipates over distance. And the sound engineer basically said that with a 90 dB level, I think is what he used at the source, meets the 80 dB level at the perimeter. the property.
Well, with all due respect, we're talking about some data and decibels, and the sound engineer himself has said that the impact varies on environmental conditions. So I think the neighbors should be given particular credence if they are being repeatedly bombarded with distorted sound, no matter how the decibels go, no matter what it is happening at 3 feet from the speaker. And if it's, and we don't know what these speakers look like. So it really comes down to if people are suffering in the height of the summer season when they would like to be outdoors, and I don't mean mowing their lawns with headphones on. I mean sitting there in your backyard listening to the birds. And so I just think we should be given a voice, and the permit should be contained enough so that you can weigh our concerns properly.
Can I ask a question of the board? When I am negotiating with Alex Glover on the changes regarding conditions, can I also include a description of how we're going to do this logging and database entry for us to return to the board with something that we maybe agreed on?
I would say yes. I think that's got to be part of this agreement.
Okay.
And I like Dale's idea of perhaps the town owning a qualified instrument, and the data be taken with that instrument.
Also,
Can the decibel meter be worked into an app that would be on our phones or the town administrator's phone so that it could be measured remotely?
I don't know.
Most probably, if this were to end up in a litigation over dB numbers, it would have to be an instrument that has periodic calibration and things of that nature. And it'd have to be it'd have to be recognized by some standard, and it would have to have periodic calibration. So I think the answer to that question, your question, Neil, is no.
No? Okay. Well, I've read some of the chat comments as well from Harley and from others. This is not an exact science. We cannot guarantee to every resident in the town that they are entitled to absolute silence. Balderdash is a lawful business. Other towns, very large article in the Eagle about Stockbridge and all the issues they have with noise from various locations within that town. We're doing the best we can, and we want our neighbors and residents to have a comfort level, but we can't guarantee, as I said, you will never hear noise coming from Balderdash.
Are there any other comments about this subject? Yes.
Yes, if the town is considering purchasing or using some instruments, could they be provided to residents at various locations, particularly the Shores and Orchard Circle to the west?
Yes.
No, I would say one would be fine for our purposes, and one of us would probably go to a complaint and register the noise level that was there.
Or get the app on your phone so you have at least an idea of what the noise level.
Thank you.
Leslie Britting here, but there's no provision made in any of these considerations for dB levels at individual locations. So that doesn't make sense.
Yes, it does, Leslie, because we are not going to be putting up dB locations at 2, 3, 4, 6 different residents over the period of time. You can
That's
take
not
your own, measurement, but we're
It's
not in the
not about-
business of putting up.
It's not about the, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I didn't suggest that. Please don't put words in my mouth. And what I'm saying is, it's not about dB levels on my deck. It's about the noise we're hearing, and the fact that it goes on for hours and hours, and the quality of life that has changed.
Well,
So I'm not asking for you to buy a lot of expensive equipment. It's not at all what I've asked.
Noise is measured in decibels.
yeah, Leslie, I've been to your area, your home, and several times I was there, the noise levels were below ambient. I'm sure on some occasions you do get noise, on some occasions you don't. Some occasions it's louder than others. We appreciate that. We're trying to come to a going forward resolution that we hope will work next summer.
You've also been to my neighbor AJ's house. I know you guys have discussed it, standing with you in our neighborhood, that you wouldn't like it if it was in your house. So let's be honest about this. It's
I
for
don't recall saying that, Leslie.
As far as the decibel meter reading, I just wanted to point out that when we had the sound engineer there, we did also have them compare the dB levels with the monitor that Christian uses, just so that we could make sure that they're not drastically different. And they were reading pretty much the same. So it's not like we were using some random one, just so that we know that what he's measuring is very similar to what the sound engineer is measuring.
Well, I can't agree to self-monitoring. My 20 years in the government in dealing with employers, they don't self-monitor as a majority. So I can't go along with that.
All
I
right,
comment on that.
your position is you've registered your position.
Can I just make a legal clarification about that?
Certainly.
If you adopted this special permit bylaw and you said the decibel limits are not to exceed, what did we say, 89, 3 feet from the speakers, that's not subject to self-monitoring. I mean, there may be daily self-monitoring or a log, but if there were exceedances with that amount, that's an enforceable limit. So it's not the same as just saying, oh, you're going to watch it yourself. There is a limit if you adopt this, and that's enforced by the building inspector.
And we could go on his property and measure if there were issues and complaints.
Yeah, it's not self-enforcing. I mean, what he's offering to do is continue to monitor it also.
And
That's a good explanation.
he's also agreed, just verbally tonight at least, to keep that record and share it with us.
I would like to move along. We've heard a lot of the issues explained to us, and we've heard a lot of issues from people that are unhappy with the situations. But we're going to have another meeting on this in the future date. So I would propose to close this hearing and move this.
Continue the hearing.
Continue the hearing to a date specific, which is the next, I believe it would be the next selectmen's meeting.
The 20th.
The 20th.
January, okay.
The 20th of January.
I would
second that motion.
Okay, discussion. I would further expect that there be an agreement between the applicant and our attorney as we enter that next meeting, so we can get to an approval or disapproval.
We'll get it done, Roger.
I think that's the expectation.
Could someone just say when the hours, the permit allows the music, from what hours to what hours outside?
It's my understanding that it would be from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. outside.
Because that's a long day.
And that event could go to 11 p.m. inside. Is my understanding correct, Christian?
That is correct. And just practically speaking, we put the earlier time in there because we have events. We had events this year. A few different companies came in to have events on the patio. So our open hours are 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. But practically, we're not having music there until at least noon, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
So I think that answers the question.
Is there any more discussion on this subject? If not, I'd like to hear a vote from the board. All
Aye.
those in favor of continuing the hearing,
Aye, Pilson.
Aye.
Hanson, aye.
Me, aye.
Okay, I need to know what the next item on the agenda is since I don't have the list with me, please.
Richmond Cemetery burial request.
We have a burial request.
What I would, we had a couple people here that I didn't recognize their names, and I didn't know if they had a quick item or not.
And
So if some,
probably should have put this up at the top of the meeting, but
so if somebody's in the audience that has to get something before us, before we go down our regular agenda, squeak up now.
I thought we had a request to buy a plot and Al Hansen's suggestion that perhaps that wouldn't be necessary if it was a cremation.
Is that number 2 on the agenda?
I think so.
Well, let's do it then.
I think that's the request that we received. I'm just looking for my copy of it here.
Cemetery burial request. Who's speaking to that?
My name is Nick Besabrasso. I made the request.
Oh, hi, Nick. How you doing? Oh, are you from the Buell Estate?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm familiar with what your request is, to be buried with your in-laws or,
Well, no, wait, the request was for a lot, and I simply suggest, it's only a suggestion that possibly because it is a cremation, it could be buried with the family itself. Would that be acceptable?
Yes,
are we talking just one burial, yours?
I believe so. First of all, I'd just like to clarify that my mother is buried there. My mother's brother, my uncle, is buried there, and Mrs. Buell and Raymond Leslie Buell, my grandparents, are buried there. I would definitely be cremated. And I think I have no kids. My sister is not interested, and there are no other relatives, although I cannot confirm that I'm the only one. I'm 95% sure I am the only one. I'm not looking
Are
for
you
my-
the grandchild that was pretty much raised on that property, the Buell property?
No grandchild was ever raised on that property. My mother was raised there as her brother was. I was raised in New York City by my parents, Elizabeth Buell Besabrasov, and my father, of course. But we were regular visitors, but we were never raised there. We learned how to play tennis on her tennis court there on Summit Road, as many other children in Richmond did. But yeah, no, I'm just interested in a small spot. I don't want my own plot. I could be jammed in there perfectly well. It's a very, I'm not a very religious type person in terms of like kernels, but I would like to be buried next to my family.
Well, generally what we try to do is accommodate, I don't want to say historic, but long-term Richmond families. And the Buells definitely fall in that category. And if you're the only remaining grandchild of the Buells and you request a burial there, I like Al's suggestion of just allowing, and Steve Parsons is online here somewhere, if it would be permitted to just do a cremation burial with his grandparents.
With a small headstone showing it's me, or what?
Well, I guess yes, I think that could be a flat stone, surface stone. Is Steve still available? I see he's listed and muted.
Steve, are you with us?
In general, I can't see your first name, Mr.
Oh, my name's Nicholas.
It's covered up with an arrow on my thing. Generally, we would not allow you to like buy a lot there in general. That would be the general rule. But to be buried on a family plot, we encourage that. So I don't know. I'd like to get Steve's input on that. I don't know if we can give him a wake-up call, Danielle, somehow.
We'll see
I
what
don't
I
have
can
a
do.
s-
I'm not sure.
What's the timing on your answer that you would like to get?
Oh, I thought you said, what's the timing on my possible cremation?
Yeah,
date?
it looks to me as though we have time. Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm 62 years old. I'm pretty good
Yeah.
health. So it's just something that has been sort of nagging at me.
Mhm.
And I thought I would just start the process. So here I am.
Yeah.
I'm not in a huge rush.
Well, the process has started, and what we need to do is talk to Steve, if we can get a hold of him. Why don't we get a hold of Steve? We'll have the suggestion that Al had, which I think with your head nod, and you seem to be in agreement with that, if you could have a stone there. And then we'll address it as soon as we can wake Steve up. Steve's our cemetery superintendent.
That's perfectly acceptable to me. And I guess I'm in touch with, I guess it's Danielle.
Yes.
And maybe we could continue to communicate your decision to me and move forward that way.
Okay,
Well-
that sounds like a plan.
Roger, do you want to say subject to any concerns that Steve might have, the board would approve this?
Well, yeah, I guess we could do that. I'm willing to approve it, but it is subject. Steve, he may know something that we don't know. And Al had a suggestion, and it sounded like a good suggestion. I just don't know if it's compliant with the cemetery superintendent's, if he would agree with it. There may be some reason why it can't happen, which I don't think is the case. I think it can happen. So I'm willing to approve it contingent to Steve's approval.
I will say the same thing. I have no problem with that. And if Steve has a problem, then we should know about it, but I don't think that he will.
Right. So we could vote and approve that, but be aware, Nick, that it's contingent on what the superintendent has to say. So we can do that to give you comfort that we're moving forward with it and we approve of the plan that Al suggested. But that can be modified, maybe, or it may be rejected, which I doubt. Is that okay with you, Nick?
Yes, it is. It's it's very meaningful to me that you're considering this. I've lived all over the world. I live in the Tetons of Wyoming and Idaho right now, and there are some amazing. There's some really amazing old cemeteries here. It's very small ones, very similar to Richmond, that are incredible. I've always thought to be buried in Richmond, which is really one of my favorite places in the world. I have not had an opportunity to live and work there remotely. It could happen one day. My wife is from New Hartford, 45 minutes away or so, or an hour away. So although we don't live there, I'd love to be buried there.
Okay. This doesn't grow into an extra plot for her.
Oh, no.
Okay, so what you're requesting is just you, earn, and that's it.
That's correct.
Okay, so I want to make sure we're asking Steve the right question. I'm ready to vote, Al.
Those in favor of granting this permission?
Yeah, Pilson, aye.
Contingent on Steve's approval, aye.
Aye.
Hanson, aye.
Okay,
So Nick, you're 1 foot closer to the grave.
All right, thank you all very much for your
One
consideration.
step closer, one step closer.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
I hope to see you before that day comes.
Yes, it'd be nice.
Okay. If you're in Richmond, look us up.
We'll probably be there before you are, Nick.
Keep our fingers crossed. Stay healthy and stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.
you.
Next item, please.
The next item, Al, is discussion of Walnut Road parcels up for auction.
Okay, Bill's online here, yeah. It was brought to our attention that at least two of these three parcels are, I believe they're in wetlands. They're in some sort of a wetland situation where they fall under some state chapter, and they would virtually be unusable as far as construction goes, as far as a house of any sort. Now, that is the way I understand it. Now, can somebody elaborate on that a little for me?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say one quick thing though. Those lots are not in the DEP wetlands. They are, have to go through natural heritage though. But they're not specifically designated as Mass DEP wetlands on their contour map, nor is the lot that we agreed to put into conservation restriction the last time. Which is fine. I just I want to just caution the town on just keeping land with conservation restrictions on them throughout the town rather than trying to sell them and allow people to develop them or build them if they're willing to follow all the rules, especially since there's houses all around both of those. I do agree that it is wet, and I do agree that it may not be the most ideal place for somebody to be able to buy and put that place, but it does make sense to at least try to sell it from the town standpoint.
The situation is, I don't think we reap much profit from these lots. What is it, $27 a piece, or is it less than that, tax-wise?
Why is this on the agenda? What's the issue?
Bill Malumphy requested that we put this land in conservation, and I asked to have it put on the agenda for him to speak to it.
Okay.
This is Ron Vallette speaking, and I can comment on his input. I think he's still online. Bill, are you here?
He's there, but he's muted. Can you unmute him? There you go.
Yeah, I think we've got it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I live adjacent to the property of these lots 3, 4, and 5. And just a brief history with me and these lots is that they were taken for taxes. Lot 5 was taken for taxes in 1975. They weren't taken until the town didn't take Lot 5 and 3 until 1985. They didn't go to the first round of public auction until 1994, in which there were no bids put on it. Once they had cleared public auction, the town had the right to dispose of these lots in any way that they saw fit. And I had tried in 1997 to purchase these lots, and it didn't really gain a lot of traction. These lots are wet. I would argue with Danielle a little bit that these are under NHESB. It's in a protected habitat for mass endangered species, and it also sits in the buffer zone of the Nordine Marsh, which is a resource area over across the road. There's line water in these lots, and on the revenue side, they would generate combined, all 3 lots put together would generate about $27 per year for tax. Again, I tried to purchase these lots in 97. I went to the public auction in 2003. That was the solution in my query in 97 was to push them off to the auction of 03. And there was a procedural follow-up. If you remember, Roger, you were on the Board of Selectmen and Al. There was a follow-up in the auction, and we had mutually agreed that it's tough to get excited about $500 lots that are underwater, and they don't really, garner, to get really aggressive about buying them. So 17 years later, here we are again to public auction, And again, lot 3 and 5 are still available to be sold by the town, but I don't think that that's going to happen. It would be, I think it would be great to put these into Article 97. Richmond Shores is overdeveloped as is. And the idea of combining lots, and I don't know if this was ever discussed in 14 and 15 when the zoning changes happened here. The idea of coupling non-conforming lots into by right use to be developed, I don't know whatever happened. There was discussion about it. I don't think that there was a prohibition put on it. I think is a bad precedent to want to couple these lots and to continue to develop a place that's overdeveloped where there are already by right use lots available to be built on. So I just think that this is a good candidate for 97. You know, or just it's a really poor idea to develop in this area. Walnut Road, there is no road present to get back to these lots. It would be 300 feet of having to go through woodland to get back into these wet lots. And there's no electric back there. There's no sewer. And it would be quite a mess to even get to the point of trying to develop the lot. So it's a secondary issue. So anyway, I hope you consider it. It's these things have been out of revenue for 45 years, some of them. And the idea, this is the third bite at the apple to try to auction these things. And I wish that I was more aggressive back in the late 90s to really push to buy these things. And you know, I didn't. So here we are 4 years later, thinking about the potential development of these lots. And I think that they're environmentally sensitive and they should just be put into they should just be considered to be preserved. So that's all I got. But thank you.
Well, here's what our position is, Bill. We don't see those lots as being buildable, even if you combine them.
Okay.
It's our hope as for us to just continue to hold it and lose our $27 a year. What we're trying to do is provide an adjacent property owner like yourself to say, yeah, I'll buy that and take it off your hands, and I'll pay the $27 a year or whatever it is. And well, that's what our plan is just to get it on the tax rolls, even though it is minimal.
And that's a great idea, and I'm all for that. And I think in the letter that I had sent, I don't want to rehash the 7 or 8 paragraphs that I had sent to the board, and I'm all game for that. I would love to buy these things again. My issue is, or my concern is that someone sees these 3 lots combined in the paper, or not combined. I'm sorry, they see them posted and understand the fact that potentially they could be combined and convert them into a developable, a lot that could be developed. So that would perhaps drive the bid up on them. It would make it something that would be desirable for somebody that didn't know any better, I guess. And in turn, I would be bidding up against that person. I'm more than offer. I would love to bid on the things, and I would be glad to pay the $27 a year on it. It's the piece of the auction is the problem of having the price driven up. I'm not going to pay a lot of money for that swampy lot. So I guess
well, it was my understanding that these lots were that you could not combine a bunch of lots and make a building lot out of that. My understanding was that when this whole sort of thing was done, there were certain lots that were buildable because they had enough lots to qualify as a building lot. I don't believe you can put together a bunch of lots these days and have a building lot, but maybe I'm mistaken.
And Al, I'm not sure. I can't comment to it. I'm just hopeful that that's not the case.
Yeah, well, they will be auctioned off one at a time. And how an auction goes, you really don't know. But my guess is that you could probably pick them both up at opening bid. That's my guess. And I hope you're there and do that.
I'm going to do my best. But in either case, thanks very much for listening to it. Yeah, I certainly intend. I'm not looking to get anything for for nothing. But conservation wouldn't be a bad idea either.
Well, we have the right to refuse any and all offers. on that. But we most probably on those two lots will not
Okay,
reject it. So how it goes, it goes.
I got you.
And all I can say is, I wish you luck. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Roger. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although it does bring up, and I would like to bring it up at this time, concerning two other lots with the Gristmill lot, the lot on Gristmill Road. That's like a buildable lot. And so is the, on the Barker Road Swamp, on the Barker Road Swamp property. That is already a house. And I, I think we would be better off, quite frankly, on those two pieces to go out with to list it with an agent and sell it on the open market. So I think we need to have a number in our head on those properties below which we would reject. That's kind of an open discussion with Al, and I don't know if,
So those discussions may have, or probably should have happened prior to tonight. The auction is actually scheduled for the 13th.
no, I understand.
There, but
But
the Swamp Road is on there, as well as 8 Willow. 8 Willow is also a buildable. 8 Willow has a minimum bid for $1,000, and Swamp Road has a minimum bid of $10,000.
Okay. I guess what I'm saying is if say the bidding doesn't go beyond that, we can reject it. I think is there any legal reason why we can't list it with an agent?
You legally have to put it out to bid. That's how you get rid of real estate in a municipality. Unless Beth wants to tell me I'm wrong.
I never want to tell you you're wrong, Danielle.
Okay.
But in this case, I really don't think you're wrong. I think that the way to dispose of property of no value or low tax, is it low tax value that you're doing an auction?
Well, it's relatively high value, low taxes. When I say relatively high value, it's
So
worth.
it doesn't qualify for the low value tax auction. You're just going to do a regular taking auction. You still have to do public bidding.
Okay, we do a public bidding, but say we get 10,000 because that's our minimum bid. Can we reject it and then list it?
No, you still cannot get rid of your property unless you go out to bid. Just like you declare something surplus.
Are back taxes due on any of these properties?
You do have to pay back taxes when they pay, yes, and you have to buy a recording fee.
But in some cases, back taxes are waived, right?
Correct,
Danielle?
which
Yeah.
I think it will be in a lot of the cases that we have. I'm not sure about that one, so I don't want to answer that one.
Okay, all right. Whatever.
All right, let's see how the auction goes and then we can make that
Holly has her
decision.
hand raised.
Ron,
I have, I want to follow up on the Walnut Road lots that Bill just talked about. I concurred with what Bill said about what's on those lots. It's a natural heritage area. It's right across this road from Nordine Swamp. So it basically abuts Nordine Swamp with the beach road running in between. And the lots are wet. I concur with that. I walked out there, and Harley Keach and I walked out there the other day, and the lots are very wet. And no matter what, because of the natural heritage and suspected wetlands along the edge, which are not verified, they're not on the maps, but you might have to do a delineation. I think all 3 of those lots require whoever owned them to come to us to do any work on them, building or otherwise. They would require a permit from us because of their location and what is on them. And that's all I want to say.
I have a question. Can we restrict any future building on any of those lots? Would that be a doable thing? No, you can sell a lot for taxes, but you can't build anything on them or use them for any structures. Is that doable?
That's already done, just based on the size of them.
Well, I don't know. We're talking about buildable lots. I don't know if you can put a structure on 3 lots. You may be able to. I don't know what the answer is to that.
That would be a zoning question and a Concom question when they came in with a plan for what they wanted to do. The zoning would have to make a call relative to setbacks, et cetera. I don't know about sewer, if that's a zoning issue or not, but
Yeah, if I could add, the lots as they are, there's 5 lots that are broken into 3 parcels, a single and 2 doubles. And as they stand, and I think to your point, Roger, as they stand right now, no one lot meets the new zoning that was put in 2015 down here. Lots 4 and 5, which would be the 2 doubles to make 4 lots, would meet minimum for zoning. So as they stand right now, they're not buildable.
Holly. You'll have to unmute.
I just unmuted. I want to make a couple of comments to back up exactly what Harley is saying and what Ron Valletta is saying. Those lots are very wet, extremely wet. I don't think anybody has ever done any soil tests to make any determination. That would be easy to do, to be sure that there is modeling that would indicate wetlands. Some of the vegetation is certainly wetland vegetation on those lots. I also think, and this is just my opinion, that there's a hydrological connection between those lots and Nordine Swamp. But there's no question they are wet. And I do want to alert or remind the selectmen that years ago, the town was able to prove that Gordon Rose on his property had not revealed to the prospective buyer, and the realtors at the time did not reveal to a prospective buyer that one of the lots was so wet that nothing could be done on it. And you can't put a structure in a wetland. And
Well-
essentially those little slivers of lots are extremely wet.
Well, we should make sure that information is communicated to the auctioneer concerning that property as it goes up for bid. And that should, then almost definitely Bill will own 5 more lots.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Roger. I appreciate that. That was the other part of the request, which I forgot about. Thank you for saying that in the letter that I sent to the board, was that there was some mention or disclosure of the challenges that lot presents. So thank you.
So you left off the most important point, Bill.
And what would that be, Roger?
That it's not a buildable lot, and it won't be. How do we make sure that is communicated, Danielle, to the auctioneer, or I should say, communicated to the prospective bidders?
So we're not actually having a full auctioneer. The person who's going to be running the auction is actually Paul and myself, and
Okay.
the attorney for the tax title attorney, because the auctioneer decided there wasn't enough money in it for him. So he is not coming anymore. So
Okay, so how do we make sure that happens? You just make sure it happens, Danielle?
So I will just make sure it happens like you've just requested of me. And I will make sure that the people who are looking to bid on that understand that it's not a buildable lot and that it is extremely wet, and they will most likely have to do X, Y, Z. So,
Well, I would like to authorize Bill Malumphey to remind you of that fact prior to the bidding starting.
sounds like a plan.
So,
right.
so
Thanks,
now
Roger.
if that happens, Bill, without notification, it's on you.
Oh,
Fair enough.
I was in Bill's driveway the other day because we were trying to figure out where Walnut Road was.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
Danielle, did you already publish notice of an auction?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I do see that there's a provision in the public notice in the second paragraph in the paper that there's some wiggle room in there to make announcements or for terms, I think, not to change terms. I don't have the paper.
No, I think it's more of like explanation exactly Well, go ahead, Bill. Finish your statement.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, it's just that there was some, it seemed like there was some wiggle room in the second paragraph in the public notice that at the time of the auction that there could be things not added to it, but commented on.
Mhm.
That's all.
Now, those 5 lots, am I correct, Danielle, in thinking that they're all sold individually?
Those lots that
Yeah.
he just listed on Walnut,
Yes.
they're all separate. Yeah. So every single lot, even if they're next to each other, is sold separately.
Okay, so there's 5 reminders, Bill.
Okay, actually 3. There's 2 doubles and 1 single, but just the
Okay.
same. Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, are we done discussing these lots?
I hope so.
Thanks very much.
Let us move on to the next subject, which is, Raj, you seem to have the list. What is the next item?
Green burials. And I see we have Steve with us now.
Steve
Can
made
you
it.
hear me?
Well, Steve's here. Can we quickly go back to the other thing?
It'll work. Can you hear me?
The Buell?
Yes.
Yes, we can make that work.
So what I already lost his name. Nick requested is a cremation. Will fit on the Buell lot. You
Yeah,
can,
Steve was on for all that. He just couldn't, he was on for all of that. He just couldn't speak to us, or he couldn't show his face.
okay, so you heard all that was said
Yes.
and you agreed with it?
Yep.
And you can make that happen?
Yep. Cremation with a flush marker at time of need.
A flat marker with his name on it and stuff, right?
Yep.
Up to him.
Okay, so that's a done deal. We can just notify him, Danielle.
Will do, and I'll CC Steve.
Okay, now you're here for green burials also, Steve.
Yep.
Are you familiar with green burials?
Relatively familiar. Not up on all of it, but the only real concern from what I've heard about the whole thing is how things are going to settle.
Yeah. I did some research, and I think I sent information to Roger, I believe, but I don't know if I got through to Neil. I had a hard time sending it to Neil.
You did, I
get
got
that,
it.
Neil? Pardon?
I received it.
Okay, so it actually has changed my mind about green burials. Other than the settling, it seems to me that green burial is has far less environmental impact than a standard burial or even a cremation, because of the embalming fluid and all that sort of stuff that goes along with a standard burial, and of course the energy wasted to cremate someone. A green burial is probably a really great alternative in my mind. I've done a complete turnaround on that. I've done some research. There is no issue with the body communicating any sort of diseases of any sort, because when the body is dead, that's what it is. It's dead. And I have changed my mind, and I would say that I'm comfortable with allowing green burials in our cemeteries, although I don't know which ones would be best for it. Maybe some are not, maybe some are, maybe all of them are. I'm not sure about that. But at any rate, I have done a turnaround on that. I am comfortable with them, and I hope the information that I provided to the other 2 gentlemen, the other 2 selectmen, has opinionated them somewhat. So, Roger, Neil, what's your cut on this?
Go ahead, Neil. Then I'll give you.
Well, I raised it because a resident of Richmond raised it with me, requesting approval for a green burial for him and his wife at the Richmond. I believe they already own a plot. That led to the discussion that we had a few meetings ago. I still remain of the view that it's sound in terms of the environment, and B, it is a religious requirement of several residents of our town, and to not permit it would be to create some issues in terms of their right to a burial in accordance with their religion. So I remain in favor of it. I saw somewhere that we can require an added fee because of the settling issue. I would leave that to the other committeemen and to Steve as to whether we should, but overall, I am in favor of allowing green burials in the Richmond Cemetery.
Okay, and the only reason we continued it to now was to just get Steve's input, because I had heard Steve was concerned about it may impose additional maintenance, and now I understand the additional maintenance is the settling and then re-leveling. And should we, Steve, just accept that and do it, or should we, would you recommend we charge an additional fee for taking care of the settling?
I personally believe you should have a separate fee, go to a separate account to deal with the maintenance of green burial graves.
Oh, okay, so a green burial, let's just say there's an additional fee, but it's not specific to a particular grave, it's just for all, it's like a holding account to maintain any settling, specifically of green burials.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, because there is
What should that fee be? $50, $100, $1,000?
I would say somewhere between 200 and 400. I mean, when you're looking at what, $50 a yard for topsoil or sod and seed,
Well,
and you don't.
What I would like to do, I would like to suggest that we approve the green burial, and for an additional fee to be determined. And I would like to give you a week or so to give a more. I mean, you kind of gave a quick response. I'd rather have a more thoughtful response in like a week or two as to what that number should be.
Well, I don't think I can give you a concrete, because I don't know how it's going to settle or how many times you're going to have to go back in there. I know that I've talked to the guy that actually digs the graves up here or in Richmond, and he's done some green burials, and he doubled his burial fee. So he went from $650 to $1,300, because he doesn't know how many times he's going to have to go back to touch up the area. And that's
there may be a way to check on it with other cemeteries that have used green burials. I think they may have a cut on what it takes to maintain them. Maybe we should contact some of them other cemeteries or cemetery superintendents to see what experiences they have had. It may help us out to determine a price.
We do have the list of fees from Great Barrington.
What's
But
that?
we do have the list of fees from Great Barrington if you want to see that. But I did have a question on green burials, especially for Steve.
Yep.
Is there a concern about how close a green burial goes to a burial with a vault? So if it's a green burial, you're not in any vault. So then if you go to dig a grave site for somebody who does want to have a vault, the last thing you want to do is dig somebody up who did not have a vault.
Well, fortunately, Richmond has big enough graves that I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay.
We're got 10 by 20 or 10 by 10 or 5 by 10 lot graves. So if there were to be a vault, it would normally, we put vaults close together to so that the walls don't cave in. If we went the other way, we'd have to spread it out so that there was more earth between the vault and the green burial. But there won't be a problem. There won't be a space problem.
Okay, so we shouldn't have to write Well, I'm wondering if we should put something else in the cemetery regulations so that you can adopt it, about the green burials, about, if you buy a plot, if you have more than one person who's a green burial or not a green burial, if that's fine, like you say, Steve, then we don't have to describe that at all. But the other comment that I did receive from Great Barrington was we may just want to make it very clear that, if somebody actually has chemicals put into their body or any kind of infectious disease, they, cannot have a green burial, and they just have to certify that.
Really? Oh, I didn't understand. I thought that was not a part of the issue. Another reason I wanted to ask, I thought Neil had come up with something about a green burial can use a top and bottomless vault for this, for the purpose of adjacent burials not causing or creating a problem for cave-ins or shifting of the soil. Is that true, Neil?
Well, let me point out, my degree is not in this area either. I thought there was something with linings, gravel lining that could be, that would accompany a green burial, or could accompany green burial, which would prevent the, I think the cave-in issue. You might have
There are those options. I believe if we could speak to a burial agent, or Steve could, as to those kind of options, and see if it's something that you may want to look into, requiring, or if you don't want to require it, you can always make it optional and change the fee, so that if you have one of those, it wouldn't necessarily make the maintenance as much extra versus if you didn't have the top vault. So those are just things you might want to
The only
consider.
point I'd like to make is I would like not to penalize the family with, I don't mean this pejoratively, excessive fees or burdensome fees. But at the same time, I think we can reflect some added cost to the town.
Yeah.
But I'd leave that up to you guys.
Yeah, I would like to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into all these alternate methods and all that stuff to prevent. I think a typical green burial is you dig a hole and you put the body in there and you fill
Well,
it.
Kate, no, there's a wooden box.
There's a wooden box, but
yeah.
You know,
There are different options of green burials, though. Some of them don't have wooden boxes.
But
I know some do, some don't.
What I don't want to do is start imposing all kinds of things, but I do want to come up with something that addresses the added maintenance. And I think we need some time to come up with what that added fee should be. And I don't think it's double, but I would like to research that a little bit more. Actually, I'd like to have Steve and Danielle research it a little bit.
We can
come up
refer
with
to the next meeting.
Well, for one thing, I want to point out before it all begins, the green burial is far cheaper than a standard burial, far cheaper.
That is correct.
Well, I guess we can move on to the next subject now, I guess, if everybody's done on that one.
So what I would like to do is have I'd like us to approve it, and it'll be with us having a time frame by which we establish a fee, an added fee.
Do you want any form of regulations that will go into the cemetery, which give you the guidelines?
Yes, when we have, what we want to do is we want to modify our cemetery rules. I don't know if it's our rules or guidelines. It's our rules, cemetery rules, and that includes the fees.
Just be an addendum. That's all. Yeah.
How long do you think you would need, Steve, to come up with a fee structure that would cover you?
I don't know. I've never done it. Like I said, I would have to track down some people and figure out. I mean, the only maintenance I'm going to be doing, or the town of Richmond is going to be doing will be, you know, leveling it off after it settles. And the question is, how often am I gonna have to go back and do that?
Well,
And,
making,
and I don't know if you're gonna get a black and white answer because the
well,
soil,
let's get a black and white answer. Make the assumption that you have to do that twice and make an assumption of, you know, a yard of topsoil each time and make an assumption it's going to take you
okay,
4 hours or whatever. Just make a bunch of assumptions that you think are reasonable and then
okay,
put a price to it and be done with it.
okay.
And
I
you
can
may,
do that, or you guys can do it for me, but
and we can revisit that fee structure in a couple years to find out if it's too much or too little.
okay,
I'd rather start off with a relatively small number and grow it if necessary, as
Well-
opposed to having a big number and find out that we didn't need it.
yeah,
So,
well, I'm figuring years down the road too, so you
Yep.
have extra money in the account to
Yep.
to cover all of them. And plus, I don't know how many green burials we're actually gonna have,
yeah, probably not that many. So,
so. All right, I will get in touch with Danielle and go from there.
okay, sounds good. So are we going to vote on it, Al?
Yes, we should. Let me
I'm-
see if I can phrase this. Well, Roger, you can phrase it if you would like. I think we would move to accept the concept of green burials in the Richmond cemeteries, provided the superintendent is able to, well, I think he's able to cover the cost of maintenance.
Right. Contingent on a fee to be determined, an added fee to be determined. All those in favor, Manzolini, aye.
Wilson, I.
Hanson, aye. Okay, now that we're by that, what's next?
Discussion of budget season meetings.
Let me get my diary here. Oh,
So budget season is upon us. And I am working on finishing sending out all of the budgets to the departments, and they are due back to me by February 15th. So what we did last year was we had the finance committee come in an hour or so before the selectmen's meetings and did it that way. It seemed to work well. So if you guys are fine with that, I would like to go ahead and set the selectmen's meetings, and then we'll have those available as also budget meetings so that we can give those dates out to department heads who need to meet with you guys.
Okay, I would like to go back to our second and fourth Wednesday schedule.
Yes, that is what I would recommend.
So why don't we just let that be the rule? The
Sure.
second and fourth for February, March, April.
that
It'll be
would
the 10th
February.
and 24th of February,
Yep,
the 10th and 24th for March,
hold on, I'm writing here. March, you said, was the 10th and 24th as well?
Yep. And then the 14th and 28th of April. And since we're on meeting schedule, the town meeting is the 19th of May. And I believe the town caucus is the 15th. I'm just double checking on that one. And I don't know when the baby town meeting is because you guys don't actually set that. We only did it last year because of COVID.
Yeah.
And Danielle, you said the April was the 14th and the 28th?
Yes.
Yep.
I'd like to get back to in-person meetings as soon as we can.
So we are currently trying to make that work for you.
Mhm.
We also want to be able to have a live feed to be able to broadcast, which is what we have said the last couple of meetings. We did get a new camera. The camera seems to be working pretty well. The trouble we are still having is the echo we get because the room is so large with the microphones and the talking through the screen. But we think that we may have come up with a solution. I don't know if we can pull it off for the next selectmen's meeting, but we're hoping for next month we can try to make it work.
Okay.
Can we borrow the barriers from Christian for this?
When's our next meeting in January?
The 20th.
Okay. All of these are at 6 PM, right? All of those we just scheduled?
Yes. Yeah, we had switched to the 1st and 3rd because of the way all the holidays fell from
Yep.
October, November, December.
Yep.
Danielle, did you post anything on,
What?
something popped up on my machine, but it may have been me. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you may have posted something, but I don't see it.
So that's it for that discussion. The next thing is selectmen's matters. I have a couple.
As do I. Go ahead.
Do we have a garbage pickup schedule available to send to the town residents yet?
Do you normally mail them?
Normally the service people, well, I can't think of their name offhand. That'll happen to you someday too.
Casella.
Casella.
They usually have a schedule that they give you a stack of them.
So we did just get those.
Oh, okay.
And we are going to put in the newsletter that they are available for pickup, and we have it available online as well.
Okay. Okay.
We did just get it though, so I had called them and asked them for the copies, and they said that they had sent me a proof back in October, and we're waiting for my approval. I missed that email back in October, so.
There's a bunch of old people in my neighborhood, and generally I get a handful and bring them around and give them to them.
Well, we have a stack of them, so you're.
I'll do that. But I think it's a good idea to put that in the e-news also.
Sure. I did it this past week with a link.
I must say I'm saddened by the calendar not being printed this year. What a loss.
Yeah, we've had a lot of residents who are pretty upset about that.
And the other thing that I would suggest that we do is our calendar that's online via our website.
Yep.
Can we put on there the informational meetings for the town hall library community center information session meeting?
Sure.
And and maybe another reminder in the newsletter with the dates and link information. We got these informational sessions that are happening. The last one was not well attended, in my opinion, for an all-town meeting type of event. Somehow the word is not getting out, or I don't know. Maybe the town is less. Maybe there are not as many computer people as we were hoping there was.
Well, Roger, I had a discussion with Pat Callahan on this today. We need to make a telephone effort to invite residents to attend these public presentations. And I suggested that each member of the Municipal Building Committee call up to 10 neighbors and fellow residents to book them to attend one of these meetings. We're going to invite 3 of the town committees to join a presentation to the Long Range Sustainability Working Group on January 21. We're inviting the Planning Board, Zoning Board, and Concom to attend that session. So we're trying, I impressed on Pat, and she of course shares the urgency of getting these presentations viewed by our townspeople, because that's the only way we can explain what it is we want to achieve.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to do is get a easel flip chart type of thing that we can put in the library and maybe in the town hall. I mean, I know nobody goes in the town hall, but we could at least put it in the library. People are going to the library. Yeah. And I'd like to get everything open as soon as we can.
Well, I'm afraid that's going to be.
I know Curtis is working on getting you those documents. I did have a conversation with Pat this afternoon. The PowerPoint presentation is extremely large, so we're trying to figure out a way to be able to make it available through the website. If we can't do that, another option we have is perhaps to just buy a domain for a few months for $30 a month and create one for the Richmond Town Library project, and then be able to have those items there for review, or somehow turn it into a video to make it link to our YouTube page. So we're trying to figure out how to get that set. I gave Pat a few email addresses this afternoon so that she can start sending out more emails, invites to get more residents. One of the people I suggested she email is Ken Kelly, so that he could send it out to the entire Richmond Pond Association as well. So
yeah, and they could set that up somewhere that people could view.
Peter Cohn would probably know how to convert the slide presentation into a video. I mean, that was his business.
Yeah.
He did the town video.
Yeah.
There was conversation from Pat as to whether she really wanted it a video or not, because I could take that presentation and go ahead and put the presentation we had done right up on our YouTube video. She was more concerned that people would not want to do it that way and prefer to go at their own pace as a slide. So we're still kind of kicking those options back and forth.
All right, that's fair.
Well, my concern is that time will kick by, and it may before you know it, all of a sudden it's going to be a surprise to a lot of townspeople, which it shouldn't be, but a lot of them seem to be in the dark.
No question.
I did put a link to the letter on there too, on the newsletter as well.
Mm-hmm. That's all I had.
Yeah, we have something.
Yeah, I've got 3 quick items. The first is just a request. We still have this issue of who owns town hall. It has been the subject of multiple emails, and the most recent seems to be reasonably clear that the town owns town hall, and there are old documents that were attached to what I've received from our town council. I would like to ask our council to review the documents, make a recommendation to us. If it is 99% clear that the town owns it based on the deeds that are on file, then we can proceed with the assumption that the town owns the parcel. If there's any question, any issue, and I know Holly's right there, then I believe there is a legal procedure to settle title, which is to bring an action, give notice to all possible interested parties, and seek to establish for the purpose of our rights, legal rights, because it will come up in questions as to what do we do with town hall if we have the bond issue approved. So I think we need to settle that. And perhaps we need to bring an action to quiet or settle title to town hall.
I thought we already had such an action. I thought Rick did all the research and we said, okay, let's bring that to closure. So if what you're suggesting is the way we bring that to closure is
Yes.
ask for, okay, fine. So I'll second your motion. Let's do it. And if there's any, if the church thinks they own it, maybe we'll give it to them.
No, they would have the opportunity to participate in the
The auction.
proceeding. Because I remember Dick's note from a couple of weeks ago asking if we really owned our parking area. And I don't remember. I know, Holly, we're not going to close it out without talking to you.
Well, I do want to take the steps necessary to get that to closure.
That's my point of view. I don't have a point of view as to.
Go
Go ahead, Stovers, you're with us right down the street.
I am with you 100%, Neil and Roger. Let's get it settled once and for all.
Okay.
And my other, as I've been hounding you for a number of years, is about changing the road.
Yes, you have.
Take the town taking over the maintenance of the road behind the church, and that's been dragging on since Jerry Capola's time.
Yep.
So let's get them all settled at once.
All right.
That's all I asked for.
Is Beth still on the?
I thought we had an action,
No.
Danielle, for Pete to get back to us on that.
You did, but then everything paused because of Rick's comments and commentary saying about who owns what. And if we take the road over and we don't actually own it, then we're in big trouble. So everything's on hold until we figure out ownership
Okay.
and
all
whether
right.
or not it's a real road.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So Beth is gone, but Danielle, can we deputize you to ask Beth to go forward with whatever action is necessary to establish title to the land beneath town hall, and I guess the parking area between town hall and the church.
It is on her list and I will ask her to move it up.
Okay.
Okay.
There-
And I would like to try to get a closure date for that. I would like to shoot for no later than the end of February. I'd like to shoot for mid.
Roger, let me assure you that that kind of a proceeding doesn't go real fast, but.
Well, I definitely want it to be in the rear view mirror by the time we get to what are we going to do with the town hall question for the building committee.
The church.
Remember
does not-
Jarndyce against Jarndyce, one of the Dickens, went on for 50 years.
Well,
Yeah.
the church does not want to own the town hall. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. Well,
So
I don't.
hopefully you do own it.
Yeah, I hopefully you're right. And if we don't, hopefully you'll give it to us.
We will, gladly.
Yeah,
Well, I'll tell you the truth,
we got
Dick.
to do something to settle it. The last thing I want to do is be at a meeting for this and somebody make a big issue about what do we do with the existing town hall? And I don't want our answer to be, well, we want to spend another 5 years figuring out who owns it. I want the answer to be more definitive.
I'm with you.
Okay.
All right. Well, one possible answer is for the church, as part of a proceeding, to provide us with a quit claim deed, relinquishing whatever rights you may have. And that would go towards establishing that the town is the proper owner. I do happen to have a degree in this area, so.
Okay. Well, maybe you can help us then push this to a solution.
I will, and I've talked to the town attorney, Andy Hotchberg, and he's been trying to get in touch with Beth Goodman. So hopefully the two of them will get together and square it away.
Andy's not the town attorney, he's your attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned that it was the town attorney.
No, I said, and the town attorney, Beth.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right, so that was item one. Item two was also pretty quick. I'm co-chair of the Cable Advisory Committee. We are drafting a proposed franchise agreement that we will submit to the Board of Selectmen for their review and approval. Should have that for you soon. But we had a resignation from our committee. Jill Pompey, who, as you know, has resigned as principal of Richmond Consolidated. And she has recommended, and we have previously met with Rana Zygmunt, who is the video arts teacher at the school. And we'd like to add her to our cable advisory committee because one of the issues that we'd like to discuss is seeking a grant of funds from the cable company for the development of a production and origination capability at the school. So the kids could basically produce their own news programs, cover their own music shows, and actually have a terrific educational opportunity. Jeff Diamond is a member of our committee. He's an Emmy Award-winning producer, and he would be very excited to work at the school to help the kids do that. And so I'm asking the select board to appoint Rana Zigman as a member of the Cable Advisory Committee to replace Jill Pompey.
Are you comfortable with this person, Neil?
So I've met with her and she's a top flight person and it would be exactly the right person. Matter of fact, Jill delegated much of the discussion to Rana when Jill was on the committee.
I'll second that motion.
All right.
In favor?
Pilson, aye.
Manzolini, aye.
Hanson, aye.
All right, because this allows Rana to attend our next meeting, which is next Thursday, and we will subsequently meet with the board.
How can we get Jeff Diamond more involved in the town?
Jeff has, you probably wouldn't like me to.
I know his background very, very well.
Well, his background is amazing. I mean, he's 35 years as ABC, Emmy Award-winning producer. Right now, given the COVID situation, he is basically not allowed to leave his property.
Well, that's good.
Well, it's related to some issues that he's dealing with. So,
all right. I mean, he's definitely an asset.
Oh yeah.
And I'd hate to lose him.
No, we're not losing him. He actually joined us for a tour at Pittsfield Community Television by remote. We carried a phone around and took him around as Ed Fechner and I toured the facility. So I wanted to add Rana. The third item is one we probably are going to discuss. I see the Morses, I think we're on. Naren, let me see who's still with us here. Yeah, Naren Schroeder. We extended, let me put it another way. As you recall, parking at Hollow Fields has been an issue for several months. We granted a temporary cut permit and parking area at Hollow Fields to add perhaps parking for 4 or 5 additional cars beyond the initial lot. That permit expired on December 31. There have now been issues and concerns expressed about people continuing to use that rollover or overflow parking. And I would like to suggest that we continue to allow that parking until we hear for the new permit application that I understand Berkshire Natural Resources will bring to us at the next meeting. Jeff has favored us with some pictures and photos of cars in that area. Frankly, I think it's a better solution than having the cars jammed into the small lot or parking on Perry's Peak Road.
Well, there is no parking on Perry's Peak Road. So anybody who parks there can be towed.
Yeah, well, you and I know that that's just not how it works. But the fact is, I think we all thought that it would not be a parking issue. But I guess, and I can see it from my living room window, my den window, there are cars parking there on the weekends, snowshoeing, and I guess cross-country skiers have been using the facility. So all I'm suggesting is, rather than require BNRC to move the the log again, so there's only 6-car parking. Leave where it is until our next meeting on January 20th. And I thought I saw Jeff Morse on our,
Yeah, I'm here.
there you are.
I'm
Okay.
here. I
I
raised
didn't
my
want to
hand.
slip this by you, but I just wanted to
No,
be
no.
sure you were still with us.
I raised my hand to see if anybody would notice, and they didn't.
We
But
didn't.
thank you
I
for-
can
thank
only
you for
see
the-
4 hands at once, so I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you for the attention. I would like to see BRC honor the agreement that we had on November 4th, which was to end the overflow parking lot at the end of December. It's not a big deal to do. It's simply a matter of moving a couple of 6x6 logs back to where they go. And I'll just leave it there.
Narayan Schroeder, can I say a word?
Pick up.
Yeah, Narayan Schroeder, Berkshire Natural Resources Council. I would also like to, as Neil said, keep that open. It does provide additional spaces, and they have been used. It is keeping cars off of Perry's Peak Road. It seems like a bad time to close it and put people back parking, feeling like they don't have a place and they're going to end up on Perry's Peak Road. I just don't see any reason to do that. And we will bring a revised permit based on what we've experienced. You know, the idea of the temporary parking was that we would try it. We went up there and Josh and I figured out how we thought we could best fit cars in and ended up creating 7 spaces. And so we will have Mark Volk or somebody from Foresight draw up a plan for us based on that and be able to bring that to you at your next board meeting. And so, yes, I would love to see that those spaces stay available for people to use until that time. Thank you.
Mr. Schroeder, you said 7 spaces. Where are those 7 spaces?
The way that we painted the grass is that there are 3 spaces facing north and 4 south. So what we will have designed, what we will bring back to the board, there will be a center lane, and the idea would be that people would park face in one the side facing Perry's, the folks that pull in facing Perry's Peak Road. There's only 3 spaces there because where the access road driveway comes in cuts into that space, that first space. So there's only 3 on that side, whereas there's 4 on the downhill side. That still keeps us the same distance away from Jeff Caligari's place as we had initially talked about at the previous meeting, which was already that was sort of a compromise from the drawing that we had initially proposed at that meeting. That is the permit application that's currently with the select board, but we will bring a new one based on this temporary plan that we now have.
Understood. I was just trying to get a understanding of whether you meant in the existing parking lot or whether you meant in the overflow lot.
No, the overflow. Yeah.
No cars facing Caligari's.
Correct. That's Josh and I figured that was the best way to get to use that space.
Well, the cars are facing Caligari's.
Well, I'm sure it's
pulling in while they pull in.
They pull while they're parked, and while they're pulled in, they're facing Caligari's.
Yeah. So
we have a patio in our backyard, and we're looking right at the cars in that supplemental parking lot, which was supposed to be closed down on the 31st of December and is still open.
Yeah, so let me just be clear on what the direction the cars are facing. I mean, again, I painted the grass, so I can't guarantee that they always park that way, but I tried to create 3 spaces that would face Perry's Peak Road and then 4 spaces that would face.
The cars face north and south.
Yeah.
North and
south. And that's visible from my property.
Well, yeah, it is visible from your property, but I'm just saying
It's facing Caligari's. That's my point. That's all I'm saying. It's facing Caligaris. Let's not think that it isn't.
And there's
And
current snow on ground.
I guess there's an intended parking orientation and then the orientation that people actually park.
Well, and there's also snow on the ground, so there's no grass. People don't park in any allotted parking spots. There's snow on the ground, so they park however they please.
At the last meeting that we had, Mr. Schroeder, you said that BNRC doesn't usually plow that parking, the overflow parking area.
Right.
So what's the difference? Let's just move the barriers and put it back to where it was that we all agreed upon back in November.
Well, I think the difference is that we submitted a proposal to the town to expand the lot. So clearly we're trying to solve a problem here and create a larger area so that more people can get off Perry's Peak Road. So
right, but parking on Perry's Peak Road really is not the
issue.
major issue. There's been 2 or 3 cars. It's not a big deal. It does happen and it's not allowed, but that's not really the issue.
The issue is what it's done to our neighborhood, what having 200 cars a day on the weekend has done to our neighborhood. It's not parking on Perry's Peak Road. I think you're missing the point.
well, I'm just addressing our parking permit. I mean,
Which was done on December 31st. So we're asking you to put the parking
Can
lot
I
back
just
to
point, hey, Neil,
the original
Selectmen,
parking
just
agreement.
one thing real quick.
Go ahead, Danielle.
This is not listed on the agenda.
Right.
So to get into a full-on discussion on this is not something we should be doing right now. If the board would actually like to go ahead and just approve an extension until the 20th so that we can have this conversation, they can do that. But as a full-on conversation as to whether a new parking lot should happen or exactly which way the car space is not a discussion we can have right now, as it was not posted on the agenda.
Well, when we allowed this additional parking as an experiment, that was 3 months ago, correct?
It was in November.
November 4th.
Okay, so 2 months ago.
Why don't we move this discussion up to the 20th rather than tie up everybody's time?
Well, I guess my point is they had 2 months to get a proposal into us. They knew about it then. They knew it was until the end of the year. And it was our understanding that they would have a proposal to us by then. I don't know what's the sense in having a temporary thing with an expiration date if you don't honor it.
Right, exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
The expiration date was December 31st. All we're asking is that the parking lot go back to what it was until the permit, the new permit is either approved or disapproved.
Well, I'm sorry that there was that misunderstanding, and I hear what you're saying, but my understanding was that we were going to come back and discuss this in January, and then at that time, figure out what the right way forward was. And so, once we had done the temporary parking and we realized it made 7 spaces, and it seemed like it's helping. I was hesitant to go ahead and recreate a permit when I already thought I had submitted a permit that there was no action taken on that permit. So I didn't know that I was supposed to be submitting another permit. I thought we were going to come in to you on the agenda today. And then I realized we weren't on the agenda. So now I'm just asking that it be extended until the 20th so that we can come speak with you.
Right. Well, I went back and studied the actual motion that was passed on November 4th. And in that motion, there is no mention about a discussion date for expansion. It was discussed at that meeting, but it was not part of the motion. So the motion was to have a permission till the end of December to have that lot. And that's all it was.
Here's the thing. Believe me, I don't like rules and I don't like the state telling us how to conduct our meetings and all of that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, the state does. And as much as we don't like it, we have to follow the state law. And this was not on the agenda, so we should make no decisions. at this meeting. So I think we have to honor the decisions that have been legally made.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. We'll take this, we can take the signage down. I mean, I suppose we could just leave the logs where they lie and people can park on the grass if they want, I suppose. I mean, I don't see
Oh,
what
it's
the difference
supposed.
is.
I don't know
No,
what you're supposing.
no.
Just put the lot back the way it was. Thank
Yeah.
you.
The agreement was that the parking lot ended on December 31st. The extension ended on the 31st. That's what we're asking for it to go back to, is the way that it was, what the town agreed to.
It's just grass.
Yeah, I know. It's
Okay,
just a parking lot. It's
we're
just a lot of
still
people.
full in discussion here.
My goodness.
Yeah, I think this is gonna go on endlessly. Why don't we move this up to the 20th of January where we can really get into it?
As long
Because
as the NRC
we're starting
understands.
to run late now.
Yeah.
So I would respectfully move this discussion to the 20th of January where we can really get into it.
Okay, so Al, you're extending permission to have that parking lot exist, overflow parking lot exist till the 20th?
No.
No, I think they should follow the rules of the closing date was December
Thank you.
31st.
Right, thank you.
Will do.
We as the Board of Selectmen are making no decisions on an item that's not on the agenda.
Right, okay, great, thank you.
We will remove the signage. Thank you.
And move the post back.
All those in favor of moving the discussion forward to the 20th, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. So be it.
Okay,
By the
thank
way,
you.
my selectman's matter was Jeff Morris, so Neil took that away, so I was there too.
Thank you, Selectman.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There's nothing else on the agendas except topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting.
Is
Anything?
there a report from Danielle or no?
No.
No, okay. I would move to adjourn the meeting then.
Good idea. Second,
Aye.
Aye.
we are.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay.